Greetings, everyone. So today I want to talk about weight to volume tincturing and water and alcohol solubility. And the reason I'm speaking on this today is I am about to tincture some fresh burdock root, and I've already washed and chopped some of the root here. And so burdock root is a mucilaginous herb. Root, and when we usually think about mucilaginous herbs or roots and barks, we think about like slippery elm bark or marshmallow root, things of that nature. Those herbs that soothe, and reduce inflammation and help cool things down. Well, burdock does the same thing. When you use burdock root as a tea, it's a great gut health type of tonic is for the gut, but when you use it as a tincture, it then moves over to like liver support, and is a great liver cleanse, liver detox for the liver, the skin, and things of that, and the blood as well. So the medicinal constituent in burdock root that we want to draw out, that I want to draw out here today, is the inulin. And inulin is water soluble. Inulin has an affinity for water. So doing a weight to volume tincture method will help me pull that inulin out and get as much of the total constituents, the total medicinal constituents out of the burdock root as possible. So I've spoken on different methods. I use a few different tincture methods, with all my concoctions. So it just depends on what I'm going for. I've spoken on the folk method, where we're putting herbs in a jar, and then we're, covering, we're putting a certain amount of herbs in the jar, and we're covering it with alcohol and letting it sit for, a period of time to draw the properties out. And then I've also posted my video on the percolation method. So the percolation method is more of a measured method, and it's more, of a ratio, of herb to alcohol. So weight to volume kind of falls in between those two, but it leans more toward the percolation because you are still doing a ratio method. So with burdock root, and when you deal with fresh roots, you want to use, when you deal with fresh roots that are water soluble, you want to do like a 1-to-3 ratio, 1 part herb, 3 part alcohol at a 60% alcohol volume. So that would be 60% alcohol and 40% water. And that's what helps draw the water soluble properties out. So that's a good ratio. But when you deal with herbs that are alcohol soluble, they like a higher alcohol concentration. So you want to use a higher concentration of alcohol. So plants like echinacea and rosemary would fall in that category, and our berbers, would fall in that category of being more alcohol soluble. So we would do a ratio of say like 1-to-3 with 60%, 80%, because it's like a higher alcohol. So we would do like a 1-to-3 at like an 80% alcohol, 20% water for those, in order to pull out those alcohol soluble properties. So, and the reason why a lot of people kind of get a little antsy about weight to volume is because it does require a little bit of math, so I have my math broken down in my notes and everything. And so it does require that you do some math. And the reason being is that when you do weight to volume, we're using 190 proof alcohol. And the reason you use Everclear is because Everclear is basically 100% alcohol. So when we talk about proof, let's talk about proof. So when we talk about alcohol proof, you say 100 proof alcohol, that just means that it's 50% alcohol and it's 50% water by volume. So it's 50-50, and that's easy to calculate. That's why a lot of people use just 100 proof, because it's very easy to measure the water versus the alcohol. But when you're trying to pull certain constituents like water versus alcohol soluble constituents out of a plant, you want to be able to control how much water and alcohol there is. And that's why I love working with, the Everclear, and I love working with the weight to volume, because when you go 190 proof, half of 190 is 95%. So you might as well say it's 100% alcohol, because remember, we're talking about the proof broken in half tells you how much alcohol versus how much water. So this would be 95% alcohol and 5% water. And when you're doing something like this and measuring, and you're trying to measure 5% alcohol, it's very minuscule. So we really assume 100%. So we're looking at 100% alcohol. So in order for me to draw a certain amount of constituents or certain constituents out of the plant, I have to be able to control how much alcohol and how much water I'm using in order to do that. So with this, we're going for a 1-to-3 ratio at 60% alcohol. So the math comes in at where you determine how much of the plant you're going to use. And I have 10 ounces of burdock root here. So I'm going to do 10 ounces. I'm going to tincture 10 ounces of the root. Now, the math comes in when you take however much of your plant material you're doing, which would be 10, and you want to multiply that by the second number in your ratio. Now, remember, our ratio is 1-to-3. We're doing a 1-to-3 ratio. 1 part plant by 3 parts alcohol. So 10 times 3 would be 30. So 30 gives us our total amount of menstruum, the total amount of alcohol that we need, the total amount of menstruum. So then you take, in order to figure out how much alcohol versus how much water we need, we have to break that ratio down even further. So we take 30 and we multiply that by the amount of alcohol percentage we were trying to obtain, which is 60%. So 30 times 60, which would be 30 times 0.60, gives us 18. So we need 18 ounces of alcohol, okay? So we still have to figure out how much water we need now. So we take that and we break it down further. So we take 30 again, which is the total amount of the menstruum again, and we subtract the amount of alcohol that we know we need, which is 18. So 30 minus 18 gives us 12. So we need 18 ounces of alcohol and we need 12 ounces of water. And that totals our 30 ounces of menstruum. So there's also another caveat to this. So just say that we had, we put our herb or our root in the jar and we put in our menstruum. We measured all of our menstruum, got our ratio right, and we poured it over the herb. Well, some herbs are swelling, some plants are swelling or whatever have you. And say, we put the menstruum in and it didn't cover the herb. We would then need to start adding 1 dose at a time in order to cover the herb. And a dose is not 30 more ounces of, the menstruum. It's not, so 18 ounces of alcohol and 12 ounces of water, that's not a dose. You break the dose down by such. So we know we need 18 ounces of alcohol. So to break the dose down, we multiply that ratio again. We take that second number in the ratio again and we divide. So we would say 18 divided by 3 gives us 6, because 6 times 3 is 18. So we would need 6 ounces of alcohol. And then we take that second number, like our water, and we divide that by that second number in the ratio to 3. So 12, which was the number of ounces of water we need, divided by 3 would be 4. So we would need 6 more ounces of alcohol and 4 more ounces of water. And that would be considered 1 more dose. So that's 10 more ounces of menstruum that we're adding. So that changes our whole ratio. It goes from a 1-to-3 ratio now to a 1-to-4 ratio, because we've just added 10 more ounces. We added another dose. So we basically and essentially just diluted our ratio. So we, instead of doing 1 part herb to 3 parts alcohol, we did 1 part herb to 4 parts alcohol. So it diluted, and then it goes from, we had a total menstruum of 30 ounces, and now we added 10 more ounces of menstruum, and so it goes to 40. So that's just an extra in case somebody uses this process and they say, hey, well, that didn't cover all of my herb, you know what I mean? So then you go to adding another dose. And you don't, and if that extra dose doesn't cover, you don't want to keep adding doses. I mean, the most that I would go would be a 1 to 5. So if it didn't cover, I would only go as far as adding one more dose. And if after that it didn't cover, then you either want to throw this into your bullet or your processor and, chop it up to see if that, helps to cover, all of the herb. And if it doesn't, then you might want to folk method it after that. Just add some more alcohol and let it tincture, because it still is a viable tincture. It's just not going to be a measured ratio. So here I have the burdock root in the jar, and then I have my 18 ounces of Everclear. So I'm going to pour that in. And then I have my 12 ounces of water, and I'm going to add that. And we can see it was enough to cover. And so that's our menstruum. So we had 30 ounces of menstruum. So we had 10 ounces of root, and we covered it with 30 ounces of menstruum, 18 ounces of alcohol, and 12 ounces of water. And what that's going to do is that's going to draw out the alcohol soluble and the water soluble properties of the root. So now we have a better concentration of a full spectrum, if you will, tincture, meaning, we've pulled out all of what's in the root. So, and after that, of course, I'm just going to cover the lid. Cover it with some parchment, and we will cover it up. So herbs like this, this is one of those roots that is going to end up, you're going to end up like the mushrooms. You're going to see the inulin at the bottom, that's all the goo. That's the good stuff. That's the stuff that we want. So when this tincture is finished tincturing, we are going to want to make sure that when we use it, we're shaking it so that we can mix that inulin can mix in before we actually take the tincture. So now that I have this is going to sit for 4 to 6 weeks, and that's it. So that's a wake to volume tincture, and I hope this helped someone that may want to get into that. But yeah, just practice with it. Just practice doing the math, because it took me a while. I mean, the main part that threw me, that I had to really, really wrap my head around, was adding a dose, because I have done just that, where I've tinctured and I've, did my measurements and put the, menstruum over the herb, and it didn't cover it. And, it was just like, okay, what do I do? And so the instructions for adding a dose was just like, I could not grasp it for some reason. So I had to sit with it and be like, okay, how did they get to that number? So I finally figured it out. And so I've been using this method for a few years now. On, different tinctures that I use, but a lot of times it's like the roots, I like to use it with the roots, or just like I said, when whether a plant or a root or whatever is alcohol soluble, more alcohol soluble, or more alcohol, water soluble. So when you know what the constituents that you're trying to draw out are, then you have the ability with the 190 proof, to control, how much alcohol versus water. So that's it, family. So this is going to be my next burdock root tincture. And I already have let me see, wait, hold on. Got an extra one here. So this is the previous one, and it still has, the root in it. So I still have this one, but I'm getting ready to do a lot of tincturing, with the burdock root. So I wanted to make sure that I went ahead and replaced what I had. So, so we're starting this one, and this should be good. But that's it. Have a great day. Ashe.